I do remember this was the first Bond movie that was heavily like marketed and like, you know, I remember seeing the commercials for things for this movie that I remember at least. Like, even though GoldenEye had come out.
Well, it's like GoldenEye was something of a sleeper, right? The video game, if you look into the history of the video game, it just kind of happened. It wasn't this, it wasn't a thing where the board convened and everybody's like, we gotta, you know, it wasn't like Elliot Carver's speech where he's like, I want films, I want books.
I want books, I want films, I want TV, I want radio.
I want the world. I want the whole world.
Worldwide
I want to
domination.
lock it all up in my pocket. It's my
utter,
bar and
total
chocolate.
worldwide domination. 24 hours a day.
I want tomorrow.
And then, yeah, with this movie, it's like the video games were planned. I wouldn't be surprised if there were toys and shit. It was like GoldenEye was such a hit. This is the follow-up where, what do? We already did our Cold War thing. We already milked the end of the Cold War. What the do we do now? Let's just do like big action movie. What's the plot? What's the story? Shit if I know, but we need to cash in immediately. So let's just get a rough outline going on and fill in the gaps with action to distract everybody from the reality that there's really no story going on here. And then just throw a bunch of product placement over it like Moonraker.
Well, you kind of said in the beginning about how this movie is like, some of the stuff that happens in this movie is relevant today. And I'll get out my, you know, my tinfoil hat and put it on, you know, whether it's social media or the actual news outlets. You know, we have 24-hour news and like how it has affected us and how we see the world now, controlling them in a way that's just more like, this is what's going on in the world, and people believing it and taking it for face value.
Are they merely tools for information, Mr. Bond?
Or disinformation.
But that being said, as I watched this movie this time around, I was like, oh, this is the third remake we've gotten of You Only Live Twice. And I only realized that after I watched it this third time, or this 100th time now, because I was like, oh yeah, because Elliot Carver's playing two sides. This time it's not Russia and the Americans. This time it's British and the Chinese because of Hong Kong. That kind of ties in with it, even though they don't talk about that.
Ricardo Cantoral says, GoldenEye isn't a poor movie, but it's by far the most overrated film in the franchise. The movie is just a pastiche of old Bond films, and it never has the guts to really examine Bond's character. Bond's character's all over this fucking movie.
If you want to watch a pastiche of the Bond films, go back and watch The Spy Who Loved Me, which is a very obvious pastiche of a bunch of Bond films.
We even said that movie was the best of Bond. Second remake being The Spy Who Loved Me. Yeah, You Only Live Twice, Spy Who Loved Me. There's also a little For Your Eyes Only in there. They go inside the sunken ship, and then there's like chaos, and they got to escape.
In my notes, I put such a vast improvement in underwater searching through a ship since For Your Eyes Only, which was in the 80s.
And coupled with The Spy Who Loved Me boat layer, you know, like there's certainly an influence from previous movies.
It's subtle. Like... Yeah, like when I say it's a remake of You Only Live Twice, and I think more so The Spy Who Loved Me, because it's two government agents, you know, teaming up to solve this problem.
And falling in love.
A British agent in love with a Russian agent.
Could this possibly be the moment for us to pool our resources?
Get down!
We're going to finish this together. How romantic.
It's not as over the top. Whereas like The Spy Who Loved Me is very overt. It's very obvious when you have, oh, they're taking these ships, much like they took the spaceships in You Only Live Twice.
Yeah, it's the World War III stakes of You Only Live Twice, coupled with the underwater stolen missile of Thunderball, coupled with the spy romance. But at the same time, it does come across as wholly new.
It has the distinct news thing, which is interesting enough that that's very, like, no other movie has that.